Hello, good afternoon. My name is Tracy Williams, and welcome to the construction of materials used in my individual study. Now, for this study, I used two sets of material, those that were printed and duplicated, and those that were non-printed materials. Some of the printed materials included flashcards, sentence strips, worksheets, teaching aids, labels, puzzle layout, and my game board. Some of the non-printed materials included my teaching aid, my pollination kit, seed parts, puzzle, Play-Doh, the projector, whiteboard, and my Bluetooth speaker. Now, for lesson 1, I constructed the parts of the plant, and to do so, I first typed and printed the title, which is Parts of the Flower. I carefully cut each letter out individually and pasted them to my cardboard because I wanted it to be neat and presentable. I then proceeded to draw the outline of the flower and color it. I also printed the labels for the parts of the flower. In the middle, I created the style, stigma, ovary, and ovule with styrofoam, and then I cover it with foam paper so it can be presentable. The filament and anther were made from recycled material. When you look at the diagram, you're seeing the functions, and some of them are not placed properly, and that's because when myself and the pupils were finished identifying and discussing the functions of the part of the flower, they were responsible for matching the function to the part. Moving along, I also created a game called Flower Feud. To do this, I used a recycled cardboard, and I once again typed, print, and cut each letter out for neatness for the title of the game. I also typed, cut, and paste the points and the question. Here is an example. So the pupil would come to the front of the class, select the question that they wanted to answer. They would then tear the point off to reveal the question, and they would answer the question. If they got it correct, that team won the point. If not, the other team was given an opportunity to steal and win. Now here is where the pupil would have used the Play-Doh and they would have constructed the flower and the parts discussed in class. Now the time spent, so to type and print, I spent 30 minutes. Cutting and pasting took 1 hour and 15 minutes because in some instances I would have to reprint and cut the material over because I wanted to prevent any mistake or it being too small, so I would reprint and cut all over again. So to draw the flower, I took 30 minutes, coloring took 15 minutes, so the total time spent was 2 hours and 15 minutes. Moving along to lesson 2, pollination. First, I typed once again and cut each letter out individually and paste it to the cardboard. I then, for the second aspect, you're seeing the words cut on a different color and paste it because the pupils were responsible for rearranging the words and creating the definition of self and cross pollination, and this was done after an activity which is the pollination kit. So to create this kit, I first recycled the container from the pupils after they would have eaten their breakfast, and so I washed and reused that container. I use foam paper for the label as well as regular cardboard. Inside of the kit, you will find a flower that was printed, and I made a bee with which I printed out the bee. I used the pops, sorry, I used the popsicle stick, and then I used some extra material I had laying around for the legs of the bee, so the people will move the bee from the anther and take it across to the stigma, and as they're moving it, the chalk dust would fall off, and that's how they came up with the definition. So here we have pieces or parts of the flower, an arrow, and then we have pom-pom that represents pollination. Now these were also placed in a kit, so I had to print and cut out the parts of a flower. Each group were given their kit, and so they were basically playing a relay where they had to create the flower, show the parts, use the arrow to demonstrate cross pollination. And as you can see, these pom-poms here are acting as the pollen grains. So the time spent to create those materials, I spent for typing and printing, I spent 3 hours because I had to do a lot of cutting, a lot of printing. I also had to spend a lot of time cutting out the letters individually and pasting them on to the cardboard. So the total time spent was 5 hours. Moving along to lesson 3, fertilization, I created my teaching aid where I repeated the same process of typing, cutting, and pasting the definition of fertilization. I drew and colored the parts of the flower that fertilization occurs in, which is the male and the female part of the flower. I also would have printed the labels and the fruit and the seed. For this, I spent my time bordering the teaching aid as well. Here we have a puzzle that was used as an activity. Now here I first printed the puzzle piece and the layout of a puzzle, and I pasted onto a cardboard for stability so it wouldn't bend easily. And then I took my time and cut out each puzzle piece. I also created a box or a package for the puzzle pieces to go into. So I also had to print the label and paper the box. Also, we would have used sentence strips in this activity where the pupils had to use their vocabulary skill of frequent sequencing, and so each group were given sentence strips and they had to arrange them in order to show the stages of fertilization. Now here they also had to recreate parts of the flower that is involved in fertilization, which is the male and the female part of the flower. And they did this with Play-Doh. Now the time taken to type and print, I spent 1 hour and 30 minutes. Cutting took 3 hours. Pasting took 1 hour. Drawing took 30 minutes and coloring took 15 minutes. So the total time spent was 6 hours and 15 minutes. And the final lesson, which is the seed, I had to repeat the same stage of typing, printing, cutting, and pasting. I also drew the seed on cardboard. I colored the parts that needed coloring, and that was it. Moving on, the pupils also had to build a seed, so I used recycled material or leftover materials from other activities. And so here I used the cardboard to cut out the coat of the seed coat. So that was done with brown cardboard. Here we have the cotyledon, which was um cut cut out from extra cardboard that I have, and then we have the little embryo which I print and cut it. The time spent here typing and printing was 1 hour, cutting and pasting 30 minutes, drawing and coloring 30 minutes, and the overall time was 2 hours. Now, the worksheets, I had different worksheets that I would have researched that matched the lesson that was planned for each lesson 1, 2, and 3. I marked and I saved them in a box. With that being said, that is the end of my constructions of material. Thank you for listening.